Welcome, everybody, to Transition Clarity, and we're happy to present authentic conversations. And today, our guest is Kamaria Richmond. Sorry, I apologize for that. And she is the host of Stroke Diva Fabulous Show. And I was honored to be a guest on her show last year. And now it's our turn to have her on our show. And she's also the official podcaster for Grow Your Business. And that's where we found each other. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adele, for having me on the show. It's such a pleasure and such an honor. Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the Stroke Diva Fabulous show. We had a
It
great
was
time.
it was a pleasure. Yeah, it was fun. And so I just want to start back we'll get to where you are today with this podcast and how you got there. But who are you growing up? Like what were your ambitions? Who did you want to be?
Okay, this is really funny. And when I look at my old high school book, it says I wanted to be a model. So when I
Oh,
was a professional model, when I was 15 or 16, I went to modeling school, and it was John Robert Powers, and fell in love with fashion and beauty, and did just like little shows here and there. Probably by in my 20s, I was a modeling instructor. And so that was what I wanted to do. And it's so funny because when I look back, I see my friends that wanted to be accountants and lawyers and doctors. And I was like, a professional model. That's what I wanted.
that's awesome. Well, and it's funny because as I've known you over the last year, it's like you do have that way of carrying yourself,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
And
It's
and it's funny because even if people just go to do modeling for self-esteem or whatever, like you're taught how to carry, you're taught how to present your face, so it's always in the best, you know. Yeah, so that's interesting. So obviously you've transitioned further than model.
yes.
And so what was your career like?
Well, I actually went to University of Maryland, and my major was radio, television, and film. And of course, after school, I wasn't like getting any jobs. So I said, well, let me start working on my master's, for business administration. But then I started working for a company, and I started moving around from Michigan to Atlanta to Virginia, and back to Maryland. And so during that time, um, we have a local station here, WPFW. It's actually in DC. And
Mm-hmm.
I was their public awareness calendar person. So even though I wasn't in my major, I was still, well, I kind of was
Mm-hmm.
because when I was in town, I was doing that show. But just, full circle back, now that's what I'm doing. But my I worked for Nordstrom for about 10 years, and during my 10th year, I started getting sick, and I know we'll talk about that at some
Mm-hmm.
later time. Um, but so I am back to my major, if that makes sense, in a roundabout way.
Absolutely. Podcasting, radio, whatever, same thing, right? Like
Same thing.
and the thing, like, it's interesting before we started the call, like we were talking about all the tech of everything, and
Yes.
what platforms are easier to use, right? And so you have a bit of understanding of the tech, like the understanding of like what it entails to produce a show or to do all that. Where I'm like, huh? I have no idea. Right. So it's like the fact that I get anything out, I'm excited because
Right.
it technology is catching up to the fact like you don't need to know it all
Yes.
to become an expert. right?
Absolutely. And I definitely don't. I still have, there's a show where, like last week, I can get my camera on. you know, sometimes as, with our show, the audio, there's something with the audio.
Yeah.
It's tech. And I think most people are understanding now because, whenever you get on a Zoom call, there's someone that can't get on. So it's just, you just have to give people some grace because technology, has its own mind.
Well, and it's interesting because I'm all about getting the story told, right?
Yes.
And my tech has been no one can hear me. I'm like, what? How am I supposed to get people's story if they can't hear me ask the question? And I go, okay, let's play, have a like this is the joke, whatever. Let's move on. Because what are
I
you gonna
totally
do,
get it.
right?
I
Right?
totally get it. I am not tech savvy at all. And it takes me hours to prepare for a show before, during, and after. It takes me a long time to get it published. So I understand completely.
That's interesting. So you're talking about around the 10-year mark at Nordstrom's and how health came in. Do you want to share a bit about that and like how
Yeah.
that started to make you realize like you are in a transition? What is this transition looking like?
Right. And, Adele, you used the perfect word, transition, because my life was so busy, with work and church and family and friends. And I traveled a lot for work and I worked a lot of hours. And so life was super, super busy. And, I just have to chalk it up to in 2004, the universe was maybe telling me to slow down because uh, I was always out and about doing something. And so in 2004, I started getting sick. And I think I was in California and my doctor called and she's like, I'm seeing something going on with your thyroid. And I was like, okay. So I, came home and, started running these tests on the thyroid. And then a couple months later, I was having trouble walking and breathing. And so I
Oh wow.
met with a lot of doctors during that time. And so this like, oh, well, you might have, what was it? You might have tuberculosis or you might have lupus. And actually, after bouts and months of testing, it turned out to be sarcoidosis, which is something, it can affect you in every area of the body. And it's really has to do with your, I'm trying to think of the correct word. It's really a lot of inflammation in different
Okay.
parts of the body. And now you hear celebrities that have it, like Bernie Mac. And Bernie Mac, he died from it. Tisha Campbell. There's celebrities now. Back in 2004, it still wasn't known. It's still not really known today, even for some doctors, but it
Mm-hmm.
really attacks women, Black women, women of color, women of Eastern European descent, I believe. And it's something that they say there's no cure for. You just kind of work with it with medication, diet, exercise, all of that stuff. So it got pretty bad for me because it was, for me, mimicking like lupus with the breathing. And so after a couple of months, I left Nordstrom. I actually started working for another company. I said, well, if I work for, it was White House Black Market. I said, if I work here, because of course I'm still doing fashion.
Yeah.
And, at Nordstrom, I was a buyer. And at White House Black Market, I was managing. And I said, maybe if I just do something on a smaller scale,
Mm-hmm.
then, things won't be as bad. But my work ethic is a serious work ethic. So that wasn't helping. So after about 2 or 3 months, I was sicker than I was before.
Yeah.
And I just said to myself, let me just take some time, let me just take some time and just kind of chill, get myself together, get healthy, and then go back to work.
Hmm.
And in the meantime, within a month or two, or maybe even three later, I had a stroke. And so I was 37 at the time.
Wow.
And the whole week before, I was having tests done because of the sarcoidosis, and my head was hurting. And I kept saying, I never really get headaches like this before. And for about 3 days straight, I had severe headaches. I mean, just pain that you can't even imagine. And I went to the emergency room, and they said, "Oh, well, you just have migraines." And I didn't know that at the time when I was there that I was vomiting, and I was showing all these signs. But at 37, they're not looking for someone who's having a stroke. You know,
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
so a couple days later, I have the stroke. I
Hmm.
started. I can remember. So it was 2004. I was watching Denzel Washington's Man on Fire,
Hmm.
and I'm a night owl, so it's about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I go to check my emails, and I was going to email a friend, and I couldn't read or write, but I was just like, oh wow, you really are tired because you
Hmm.
can't read or write. Well, it is,
Not realizing that this is a stroke.
not even. I'm just like, okay, well, I am tired. That was a good movie. And I'll try and email my friend. I'll email her tomorrow. I'm just gonna go to sleep. And 18 hours later, my apartment door burst open. I see these men, they're slapping me. Are you okay? I see my aunt, she's there, she's crying. And I think there were other family members with her. I know my phone had been ringing off the hook. And so I was like, why is everyone calling me? And the friend that I went to send the email with, I heard her knocking on my door prior before they burst in. And I was like, why is she, does she know what time it is? Why is she
Yeah.
knocking on the door at this time of night? So in my mind, I'm having conversations in my mind,
And not realizing that all this time had passed.
not knowing 18 hours had passed. And I could, hear things. And of course, everyone knew I was sick. My family, my friends, everyone knew I was sick. They knew I was at home. And the only reason I wasn't home is if I was going to the grocery store or going to the doctor, because I was really barely walking. Um, so they knew, especially with my mom and my aunt and my grandmother, we talked every night. And so everyone knew that I had an appointment the next day. And, really don't call me early in the morning because, I'm going to be sleeping.
Yeah.
Except for, I had an appointment, I think at 12 or whatever. And of course, I never made the appointment. And once everyone started calling, they knew that something was wrong.
Wow. But I mean, like, we'll just take a breather there because, like, talk about having a support system that was
Yes,
aware enough to say, wait a minute, like, because I know in my own life, 18 hours, like, no one would ever know that I was gone. Like, right? I mean, there can
it's
be a week
scary.
before it can be a week, easy a week before I don't talk to anybody,
Wow.
right?
Yeah,
And so,
my family doesn't roll like that.
well, no, it's not that we don't roll like that. It's just like, yeah, like, you know, or like if a phone call happens, like it doesn't mean I'm getting back to you right away because like, well, I got podcasts to do. I got, like I'm busy, so I'll get back
Right.
to you when I can, right? But
Yeah.
so yeah, so kudos to your family and friends to be
Yeah.
so on top of it for you.
And because I was sick, everyone was always checking,
Yeah.
I mean that makes the difference when I say, roll like that because everyone knew I was sick. So everyone was checking on me all the time.
And from what I understand of um, strokes, depending on the severity, is it has to, like, the medication or whatever they do has to be done within a certain time frame or
Three
you might
hours.
or you might not get your voice and everything back.
Right.
So the fact that it was 18 hours and you're sitting here talking, functioning, like, wow,
Yeah. I
that's
mean, it's
that's awesome.
yeah, it's a blessing because it's really, within 3 hours. And so, I had a bleed on the left side of my brain. And so I did, therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, eye therapy, cognitive therapy, occupational therapy.
Yeah.
I had good health care, of course I had my family and my friends. I had a tribe, a support system.
Hmm.
But it's really, if you don't have that, because I do know people that have had strokes and the outcome has been completely different if
Hmm.
you don't have so much of what you need already in place. It makes
I
a
hear
difference.
you.
And I still have many deficits. Um, the one thing is that being engaged with folks online, that has helped me tremendously because I still have deficits with my vision, with my memory,
Hmm.
and I can have a conversation with you, but it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Okay.
For sure.
Oh, yeah, because I remember when we first started talking, I could hear the pregnant pause. I was like, oh,
Yes, yes,
right.
you said that.
Because I've had many people in my life who have had strokes, and it's like, and it's interesting because even talking with you right now, I have naturally slowed down my speech
Wow.
because
Well, you're
in
intuitive like that.
well, I know, but I've just noticed it right now when I was like, interesting, because I'm going, why am I talking so slow? Because the person on this call with me needs the pregnant pause to be able to catch the words.
Absolutely.
And if
Absolutely.
anything, if anyone watching this podcast after is to understand that if your loved one has had a stroke or even a TIA, it's slowing down everything as if you're talking to a child.
Mhm. And it makes it, and of course, I didn't even pick up on it until you just said it, but it
Mhm.
definitely makes sense and it makes it easier. I guess it's why it's easy for me to talk to you because you know that.
Well, and it's also like in my case, like it makes me cognizant of, well, who are you talking to so fast? Because even yourself is like the words are just coming out so fast. Are you even understanding what you just said? And sometimes I go, I have no idea what I just said. Did anyone catch it? Right. And so it's like, and I mean, um, like I know when I used to work in corporate, it was just like I'd have 500 ideas in my head, and then they'd all end up on the boardroom, and I'd get the blank stares from everyone. I'm like, that didn't come out right, did it? And they're all like, no. Right. And so then it takes me back to say, well, how can I communicate clearly, effectively, that we actually get the outcome that everybody's wanting,
Mm,
right?
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
on the good and bad side, like one of my dearest friends, when she she didn't have a full blown stroke at first, but she had minor TIAs.
Yeah, I've had those too.
Well, I know.
Couple.
Well, and so that's where, like, because I'd be talking to her, and she'd just glaze over, and I go, "Am I talking too fast?" Because it was never like it wasn't that the subject wasn't what she knew. And so, yeah, so it's just being cognitive of who you're talking to, where you're talking, right? So one on one, I understand it's easier. But if you
Yes.
get in a room, your
A
brain's
little bit
trying
more
to,
challenging.
yeah, your brain's trying to catch everything instead of staying focused on the conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
And I'm like, and even a little tool like this for me was when I go to a restaurant or I'm in a room, I have to be able to see the door. And people are like, why? And I said, because my brain works so fast, I have to see all that's going on for in order to hear the person in front of me.
Interesting.
If I'm flipped, I don't hear anything that you're saying, and I'm here. I'm trying to understand the whole room because I can't see it.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting. Have you
Yeah.
always been that way, or has that been since?
Well, this
uh,
I guess so. I It's just later in life that I understood it,
mm,
and it wasn't until someone said, "Why do you always have to sit like facing the door?" And I'm like, I don't know. And so I said, I don't know. Okay, well, and we switched, right? I'm like, whatever, no big deal. And then it's like, okay, switch. I go, why? You're not hearing anything I'm saying. I go, oh, okay. So we switched. And then I'm like, okay, I'm here. And it wasn't like until somebody made me question it, I didn't understand. Right.
Right.
And it's
Right.
just probably like with you, right? It's like until you understand that I want to speak with you, but can we slow it down?
Right. Yeah, because
Right?
I'm always in my head, I'm always searching for words, I'm searching for context, I'm searching for meaning. There's I'm having a conversation with someone, but there's a lot going on in my head to have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Mm-hmm. And if people are aware of that, that um, because I mean, as I don't know what you call them, like the senior people,
Hmm.
um, if people just realize like in in communication, right? Like treat everyone either as the 5 year old who's starting to learn or
Hmm.
the 85-year-old who has a lot of knowledge, but their computer runs a bit slower, that slow down so they can get all the wheels going, and it's like, oh, you're talking about that, great. And then you'll get a whole beautiful story from both ends.
Right.
But it's
Absolutely.
the middle part that we think we have to go at 110 miles an hour and the speed limit's 60.
I totally get
Who's
it.
that helping?
Right. Right. I
Right.
totally understand it. And you don't know if someone's had a, a brain injury. So it's just really just being mindful of how you treat people because you just
Well,
don't know
and
someone's
it
story.
I think you nailed it with being mindful of who the person is in front of you,
Hmm.
whether it's brain injury, whether it's mental illness, whether it's they just think differently. They take
Right.
time to process,
Absolutely. Because,
right?
there's still just simple things that are challenging and hard to do.
Mm-hmm. So
But
okay, so let's sorry, but I just like I want to have like because I mean I think you're doing amazing,
yes, I am.
right?
Thank you.
And
Mm.
so here you are, 37 years old, the prime of your life, and you go, what just happened? How is my life changing?
Yeah,
And you're very very grateful for the care and the support you had, like especially in the US, that you had a good medical plan,
absolutely.
right? Because
It makes a difference.
yeah, because we don't even want to think of what would have happened if you didn't. So so with sarcoidosis, um is it manageable? Like what are symptoms that show up for it, like
It
besides like a
is.
stroke happening?
Yeah, it is manageable with medication, and it goes for me, it goes in and out of remission. And so there are little nodules that kind of show up in my eye area, my nose, and of course it has done a lot of damage to the lung area. Um, and it's even given me some arthritis. But it is manageable with medication. And as mentioned, it goes in and out. And for some people that have it, it completely goes away. So
Interesting.
it's just one of those things that I think they found it in the 1800s, but still not a lot of, I mean, there's a the Sarcoidosis Foundation. So, but there's still not a lot of resources. It's not one of those things where, they're pouring money into resources to find, the so-called cure. But it's, and I don't want to say it's rare, but it's still something that a lot of people don't know about.
Right. Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's still a lot. It's still not
Well, maybe because it's
commonly
not
known.
common in white folk.
Yeah. But I believe I want to say, I think I said Eastern European women, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
Yeah.
not very
No,
common, I don't think, in anyone else. I know definitely for Black women, women of color. But there, men get it too. I mean, different people get it, but
well, and but
I
that
guess you're
that
more genetically, maybe more prone towards it.
and it's interesting
Yeah.
because I've been on the rabbit hole of histamines and
Mm,
how different foods cause different things in histamines. And it's like, and I also am fascinated with the genealogy, right? Because I was listening to a podcast of a energy healer who talked about, oh no, like don't worry about the foods you eat today. Go back 6, 7, 10 generations. Where
yes.
were they eating food? That's the food you need to go before any industrial came in, right?
Yes.
And she said, like, for instance, like she went back 10 generations and she's actually Irish descent. But because there's so many generations in between, she didn't even figure Irish played anything into her makeup,
Mm,
right? And
interesting.
she's like, potatoes are awesome for me. I never ate them because we were told they're bad. And she says she added potatoes into her diet and her diet started flourishing because she went far enough back into the history of let's make the world better, which is actually killing them,
Right.
right?
And definitely diet and exercise play a big role in it,
Well,
for
yeah.
sure.
And so I'm looking at the histamines and I'm like, so I spent a year trying to figure out how to drink lemon and lime water because it's good for your body to wake it up in the morning.
Mhm.
I can't eat lemon or limes. I can't have citrus. It inflames my body with histamines. And you're
Interesting.
going, wow, that makes sense. So here I force myself to learn how to drink this stuff, and I'm not supposed to be drinking it, right? And so it's like, that's interesting. And so, because I mean, like you, we all are on these like journeys of self-discovery and transitioning our bodies and into making them the healthiest best for us at the time. And I thought, well, I'm doing all this great stuff. I'm eating all this great stuff. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, you are compounding the histamine issues. And I'm like, awesome.
And I mean, but that's good that you were able to do that deep dive into figuring it out. Yeah, I definitely know that my health could be better with a better diet and exercise.
Well, I know, but I
For
mean,
sure.
but it's only like for me, I've been on this since the day I was born, right? Like
Mm,
I was a baby that was underweight, was told feed her if like feed her, just keep feeding her. Well, then I'm like, I tease my mom saying, I think you forgot to stop feeding me, right? Because I was a heavier kid, but I was very, very active, right? And
mm-hmm.
then as an adult, I'm like, I can't live like this. And then I went to different specialists. Like you find what you need when you need it, right? Just like we
Right,
do.
right.
What do you mean my thyroid's off? What do you like? So like until you know something is wrong, you keep going. But the number one thing with the thyroid is that it's the organ that regulates all of our body, right? So
Yes.
when you think about your stroke, that stroke probably was starting to come before you even knew about your thyroid.
And I mean, that is possible because
Yeah.
up until that year, I
You
always
were
had a
busy
little,
enjoying life.
right, right. I mean, and I was tired a lot because I was so busy and so active. Um, but it was just, that year, everything
Yeah. But
just came to a head.
looking back, right? You
Mm-hmm.
were tired more
Mm-hmm.
so because your thyroid wasn't keeping up.
Right. And
Right?
you know, I hadn't had that issue before.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because I have thyroid stuff too. And so now it's um, like even out walking, I'll be like rubbing my throat. Good. How are you doing? Are we doing okay? Right? Like you gotta keep everything working. Okay, we'll just give you some love out here. Right? Like,
Actually, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that.
well,
I
because
like
like if you know the mechanics of the body,
that. Uh-huh.
right? Like
Uh-huh.
all your head stuff, like whether it's communication, anything, must go through the thyroid to make your arm work, to make your kidneys work, to make right, and vice versa. So your head says to your bladder, "We have to go to the bathroom." Then your bladder has to go, I think I got a signal. Oh, I think it's saying this. So then it goes all the way up through your thyroid again to say to your brain, okay, got it. Physically start moving the body towards going to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
You start
Oh,
saying, well, the thyroid's nothing, it's just a little nodule. Like, no, it is the computer, it is the mega system of the body, right?
wow.
You start having issues with that. It's like your computer short circuiting. So short circuiting. Sometimes it'll just turn off, right?
That is really interesting.
Yeah, it
That
is.
is
It
interesting, but
is.
it makes complete sense.
And my experience is either doctors underestimate the thyroid or they just blanket you with take thyroid medication.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
go, well, your levels are whatever. And I'm like, but you know what? If you looked at the blood test levels from 40 years ago, they're so dramatically changed. Because 40 years ago, our blood pressure was like normal, like everyone strive for 80 over 120 over 80. Now they want 110 over 70. Like, why? Because people are running at 130 over 90 or higher. So the
Mm,
higher we go in our blood pressure, the lower they want the numbers. Guess what? That's pushing pharmaceuticals. Who wins with pharmaceuticals? Not us.
not the patient.
Right.
For sure. For sure. And it's I mean,
And
it's
that's
so
just my
true.
opinion. Mm-hmm.
So true. I mean, it's the food we eat, it's the the environments in which we live. It
Mm-hmm.
all just makes such a big difference.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the histamine thing came too, right? Because like you're saying, okay, but I'm eating healthy, right?
Yeah, at that time I was.
Well, no, but I'm just saying you're eating healthy. Well, what's healthy,
Right.
right? Like people say, oh, eat an egg a day. And I go, well, that's poison to my body, right? Hmm. Okay, so am I eating healthy? And it's like, well, I'm going to say, like how that one lady was like, well, I can't eat potatoes. But to her body, it's like the gold that keeps her functioning. Where to my body, it's like, take it, leave it. It makes no difference.
Right. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And so, like, I think the whole industry of our health needs to change. And as the patient, whoever's on the other side, whether it's nutrition, whether it's doctor, whether it's physical, they need to pay attention to who they have in front of them. Then, well, this is what the stats say, because stats can be manipulated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the one thing I was blessed, those are the doctors that I had before.
Mm-hmm.
I had them before I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was just blessed with doctors that really know me, and I still have them.
Mm-hmm.
I've picked up some new ones along the way, but I keep them for a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that we are having those conversations
Mm-hmm.
because, yeah, it's important.
So let's go back to, okay, the stroke is over. You're now on your way to recovery.
Mhm.
How did the podcast come about? How did your love of what you went to school start showing up again? So
Yeah, and I didn't think that I would ever get back to it, but my dear friend, my sorority sister, Ananda Leek, and she's anandaleek.com. You can check her out, all the wonderful things she does. Uh, Ananda, she was one of the first people on Facebook. She's always been into social media since its
okay.
inception. And she would go to, there was a conference, it was called Blogalicious for
Mm-hmm.
women of color. And I was, can I go to that conference with you, one year to see what all this blogging is all about? And this was 2011, and she was like, sure. And so I go to the conference, I learn about all these bloggers and what it all means. And and Ananda has been doing this for, she's been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
And she had a blog called she had BAP radio, and she had present well, and she had a series called Present Moment Living. I may be getting this all mixed up,
Mm-hmm. That's
but
okay. She had some shows.
she had some shows. And so she had me as a correspondent for her Present Living. So I would, do some research and um, pick a topic on living in the present and do it on her show. And then and we did the conference. And as I'm telling you the story now, I think I'm getting everything mixed up, but that's
All
okay.
right.
Bottom line is, Ananda was like, Katie, let's get you back into doing radio and television, radio and well, I'll get to TV later, but radio,
Radio.
let's get back to doing that. And I was like, okay, so I do her show. And then she came up with she said, you had the stroke, but you're still fabulous. So she came up with the whole concept for the Stroke Diva Fabulous show. And she's like, we're going to use TalkShoe, because she was using TalkShoe as a platform. And we'll do it every month. And I'll be your producer for like a year. And after that year, you can do it on your own. You can get your guests, but I'll start the call, and I'll tweet about it. I'll do all the stuff that a producer does. And I was like, great. So it forced me to, get online,
Mm-hmm.
uh, go to the conferences or reach out to people online, have them on the show. And so after the year was up, I was like, wow, this is great. I can still have conversations with people. For the first couple of years, I always told everybody, okay, I've had a stroke. I may forget, I might repeat,
Yeah.
all these things. And people were understanding and said that it's okay, you know, I'll do the show. And after the year was up, her father, Dr. John Leake, was my producer for a couple of months because John is like that. He likes to be in the know. And so he was my producer for a couple of months. And after that, I started doing it on my own, but it started working for me as part of my cognitive therapy because I had to do research. I had to find people. I had to do
Mhm.
research. I had to learn how to be able to do it online and upload it and post it and share it and
Well,
uh,
so I have a little confession now because I was
uh,
like comparing my show to yours, and I'm like, but hers is so professional. Well, you had great teachers.
I did. I
I'm
mean,
just like, whatever. I've been told to do this. I'm throwing it up there, right? Because when I don't
I
listen,
did.
when I don't listen to the path, I get smacked, and I'm just listening now, right?
And the thing is even when I had to start doing it by myself, I was messing up like all the time.
So were you
The
messing up,
show
or were
wouldn't
you in your perfection of imperfection?
Right. Well, I was learning. I was learning and still learning. I still, things go haywire here and there when I'm trying to do the show. So still learning, but that first year was critical. And now it's something different. Before I used to always send out the emails and send out,
Mhm.
uh, I've changed some over the years,
Mhm.
um, and because with technology, you can't be rigid. Some things you just have to let go. And so I was like, I do what I do, as much as I can, and like you said, if it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but it's done.
Well, because, and I'm going to speak to that because there's so many of us that chose or didn't or whatever to do what we were asked to do for our
Mhm,
path of evolvement because we
mhm.
couldn't do it perfectly.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I found, people are understanding. And now, I
Well, but
mean,
but it's not even about people. It's about, like, you're from the church. It's like God's already made us perfect,
right,
done.
right, right.
Anything over and above is done. It's absolutely perfect.
Absolutely.
It's our earthly ego, our earthly, well, I messed up this and I didn't use the right word. It's like, right,
Right.
all the garbage in our head that doesn't need to be talking,
Absolutely.
right? Because the conversations in
Absolutely.
our heart to heart conversations are always perfect.
Yes.
Even
And
if the camera goes out, even if the mic goes out, it's perfect.
and I think, people just really want to share their stories. And I
Mhm.
feel that's, what I'm here to do, to just share stories. Because you never know where the conversation is going to go. I mean, I pretty much interview entrepreneurs, but I do have a focus on women especially,
Mhm.
um, because we do so much. So I definitely love to highlight uh, women, whether they're in business or they're authors or speakers, or I really just interview people from all walks of life. Whatever is interesting to me, those are the folks that I reach out to, and folks reach out to me. And so it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. being able to share, because you just never know
Mm-hmm.
who it's going to help. It definitely helps me for sure. But you just never know who else is listening. As we were talking before the break, one of my church members, she listened to our podcast
Yeah.
and wanted to reach out to you because you're doing just beautiful work. So kudos to
Thank
you,
you.
Adele. Kudos.
Well, and it's interesting because as you say, working with the women, and in the back of my head, it's always like, but the men need to be recognized too,
Mm-hmm.
because the
Yes.
men who are on their path doing the work, and and they're part of this evolution into this new world too,
Yes.
and um and I'm cognizant of, I've predominantly had women on my show, but I'm all of a sudden going, oh yeah, that's the one, a guy I should call. Oh, there's another guy I should call, right? Because yes, like the women are rising, but um I'm also hearing men say she's so into her feminism, she won't allow me to be the husband.
Wow.
She's so
Wow.
into her
That's deep.
feminism
That's
and
deep.
raising our kids feminist that I can't be dad.
That is deep.
Right? And so when
That is
you look
deep.
at it that way, you're like, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, yes, be strong women. Like, yes, society has made us that we have to be men, but we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Our loving, nurturing, caring, compassionate people can still get the job done as well, or if not better, than what the men have taught us.
Yes.
Because I remember, I mean, this could even be going back to Donahue days, right? Like, I mean, a long time. Remembering hearing that the struggle of retirement was the men had nowhere to come home to once they retired
Wow.
because they weren't there all
Yeah.
those years working,
Yeah.
right? And so now we're living longer and healthier, and they want to retire and they have nowhere to come home to. So a lot of men have started figuring out how to cook to
Yeah.
take that
That's
pressure
an
off,
interesting story. That's
right? Right.
that's an
So
interesting
so
conversation to have.
and so I'm like, oh, I don't have to cook every day. Done. Like if you're showing up in my life to be my partner and you can cook, sweet. I'll be your sous chef any day. I'll do kitchen cleanup, right? Because the hardest part of making the meal is figuring out what you're making,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about, like, so Anya's journey of health and recreating yourself, and like, yeah, you used to make this kind of soup, but now look at this soup. Look at how many different ingredients you can bring into this soup, and how it's it's fulfilling your life in a different way, right?
Yes.
And it's also like you had mentioned about, because of the stroke, you're unable to drive.
Yes.
And and someone said it was the best thing they ever did was giving up their license, because then they had that, oh, I can't fit in this friend. Oh, I got a phone. They're always fitting in because you're supporting each other to move forward in life. So instead of just saying, oh, I'm running to the grocery store, I have my best friend taking me to the grocery store and we're going to have a great conversation while we pick up our groceries.
Right.
Think of the
You
shift
have to
in
make
that
adjustments.
perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going, I'm alone all the time doing all these chores I can't stand, me and my bestie are going grocery shopping together and we're going to make amazing soup.
And you, Adele, you just, said that one of the key words is, it's mentally making the adjustments in your brain on how you are going to look at a situation.
Because I know with myself, right? Like, I did a lot of grocery shopping with my one friend. She didn't have a stroke, but she did other stuff. And she's like, I can't believe you like coming grocery shopping. And I said, well, to be honest with you, I don't. And she's like, then why do you do it? And I said, because I'm a person, my love language is time. So if this
Ah,
is how I get time, then we go grocery
love
shopping.
that. Love
Would I
that.
prefer to do something fun? Sure. But that's not where it's working out in our life right now. It's working out that we go grocery shopping. We have a bit of time after the groceries. It's all good. Because I'd rather have
Love
time
that.
with you than not see
Wow. I love that.
you, right?
Yes. Love
Yeah.
that. That is your love language.
Yeah. And so
Got
like
it.
and like, one friend, like, she's studying and she's trying to raise a kid and she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, but I want to spend time with you. So while she's studying a bit, I'm getting dinner ready at her house. And then we have a family meal. So her son sees like we're all together, we get time, and I go see you,
Mm,
right? Because the kid's going to bed,
perfect.
she's going back studying. Like I'm no longer of service anymore. And the time has been met for my quota, right? And so we have
Perfect.
to when and so as a transition coach, it's about looking at the current situation and seeing what needs to shift that all parties involved win. Like, would your friends prefer not taking you grocery shopping and rather taking you out for dinner and out to the clubs? And probably, but that's not
Mm,
who you are. If they want to meet you where you are, they'll be glad to come and take you grocery shopping.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's nothing like having a village, even if it's just one person in your village.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's nothing like having um folks, who surround you and understand you and love you to do those things. So
Well, and I think like as horrible as the last 3 years have been, I truly believe from what I'm seeing, people are recognizing that the outside isn't what's important,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely true.
It's about coming home to what does my heart want? I just want to have a nice cup of tea with you. Whether it's on Zoom, whether it's in person, it doesn't matter. Let's slow down. Let's stop burning our candles at five ends because they were never meant to burn at five ends and cherishing what we have together.
Yeah, but I mean that's the big lesson for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a
And I mean,
big
and so much
lesson.
so, like, like even in some of the work I do, right? Like when people are going, well, I've no separation between home and family now because they've brought their home or their work into their home, right? The kids are all home, everyone's home. Like, how do we have that separation? And so, like, now I'm starting to say, okay, so now things are opening up, things are like, where's that stuck energy in your home? Because my thing is about making your home your sanctuary. That when you go on holidays, you're going on because you want a different set of views. You're not
Mhm.
leaving chaos, you're leaving your sanctuary to see beautiful views, to come back to your sanctuary. But if your
Right.
home is chaos, you're going on vacation to get peace. You don't get peace because before you even get walk in your door, you're going to have that chaos.
Mhm.
And so,
Absolutely.
right, so it's shifting the energy of the home so you can be you, so you can be at home in your heart and in your body. So help me understand, and the people listening, what was the biggest ahas that you've learned over the last whatever 15 plus years
Uh,
from this, you know life
yeah.
altering thing?
I mean, I think that the biggest aha is, well, I mean, there are a few. One, take care of yourself. Mind, heart, body, spirit, soul. Take care of yourself. Um, and at that time, that's my watch. um, and when I stopped working, you know, all of my finances were, I stopped working because I had all of my finances in order. Um, so that made the transition easy. I had great health care. That made the transition easy. And you know, of course, I'm a church member, so of course I'm gonna always say number one is, God is good all the time. Um, so, taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually are all in one. And two, all things are possible because there was a time when they didn't think I would survive. I would walk, I would talk, I would do all the things that I'm doing now. So, life is good. Mentally, you have to tell yourself that every day. You have to believe it uh, to work through the challenges. And so, still lots of challenges, and I choose to call it a challenge instead of hard and work and suffering. Um, because that energy that you put out there is really what's returned to you. So I just like to say I'm just transitioning through all my challenges.
Well, and words are important,
Yes.
right? Because you can get stuck in the pain of your body or the pain of what has happened rather than saying, it's okay. I instead of challenge, I use hiccup. Oh, look at those hiccups showing up. Awesome. Let's move through them. Right. Like, as long as I keep breathing, we're good. Right. Where, yeah,
Exactly.
because it's
Exactly.
like if we make mountains out of molehills, it stops us
It does. It
because
does.
the mountain's too daunting. But if you have a little speed bump, and then you have a little molehill, and then you have right? And it's
Right.
funny because that's the one thing I noticed when I've been traveling in the States is like we have speed bumps, right? That are like hard. They wreck
Mhm.
the whole car, or whatever. And I love the fact when I come into some of the States, like they just have what we nickname as the lazy cops. Like they're just like they slow you down, but they're nice and easy. The car doesn't shake. Like they just go nice and easy, right? And so it's like, yeah, so we have some lazy cops in our life. Like whatever, right? It's not rattling us to crazy. It's right.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
um
And I'm going to use that little hiccups because the last couple of months I've had to go through lots and lots of testing for more hiccups. So
but the only thing is in our hiccups we don't hold our breath over them.
yes, yes, and that's key. Acknowledge it and just try to acknowledge it and work through it.
And
For
keeping
sure.
present, right?
Exactly.
Because
Being
when
present.
we're not present, we're either in the fear of the past or the anxiety of the future.
Right. And that is me most of the time. The
Anxiety of
present
the future.
moment living
Yeah.
is present moment living is challenging when you have when the past and the present are just, I mean they don't exist anymore, but it is that present moment is
Yeah,
key.
but the present moment is where God is,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So to be in
In
the
the
present
present.
moment is just to take those deep breaths and just like, I am here. Or well, you
Absolutely.
don't even have to say here, I am.
I am. Yeah, I
And
am that
as
I
you breathe
am.
in, I am. And then
I
you
am.
know you are aligned.
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
Yeah. Well, it's been an
Sure.
absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Adele, for having me. It
Do you have
has
any
been a
final
pleasure.
words?
I always feel so much better after I talk to you.
We'll call anytime.
Yeah, I always feel
So,
better after we talk.
so just as we're wrapping up here, if anyone wants to reach out to Kamaria, her show is Stroke Diva Fabulous Show.
Yes, and
And
it's on talkshoe.com. Well, I'm on Instagram, Kamaria, Kamaria Fab Diva Show. Now I ought to know these things by heart.
okay.
Facebook, The Stroke Diva Fabulous Show, or Linktree, just Kamaria Richmond.
Okay.
I ought to have that. I ought to have that written in front of me, so that, so that I know it for sure. But I'm just gonna check really quick. I think
That's okay. We'll get it all in the show notes for people.
okay, yeah, Linktree has everything.
And I'm Adele from Transition Clarity, and this has been an awesome conversation.
It has been awesome. Thank you so much, Adele. Thank you.